You tell him, King Leo, you silly boy.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the first episode of Lions Den in 2026. I guess I should start off actually by saying Happy New Year. I'm glad that we all can make it to a new year, but you should know you was gonna see your boy's face today because last night, in my opinion at least, we got the best in Netflix history, the best season final that Netflix has ever produced and put on TV. In my opinion, like I said again, I'm gonna say it again because the best season final that we ever got. Because last night I was scouring on the internet right after the season final, and I'm actually surprised that a lot of y'all did not like it. Because I don't understand. Why didn't you? What do you mean? It was very underwhelming. But for me personally, my personal take, I didn't feel that way about it. I actually really enjoyed it and I got a lot of closure from it. But you already know what we're about to do today. We're about to deep dive it. We're not gonna really critique it. Kinda, not really, not sort of critique it, but we're gonna get down in the meat and potatoes of season 5, season final of one of the greatest shows to be produced and put on television, Stranger Things. And really the first thing I want to kind of talk about is a lot of stuff that they actually did really, really great with the season final. And a lot of things that I personally enjoyed about it and that I think that a lot of other fans also enjoyed about it because, like I've said before in my past Stranger Things episode, I just started watching it this year. Like, I literally just started. And I don't want to say I got on the bandwagon because I didn't get a lot of people were telling me about it. Like, they were like, oh, wait, you seen certain things? You seen certain? I was like, nah. And they was like, you never watched it? You never? I was like, no, I've never watched it. But I watched the How to Beat video on YouTube. I don't know if y'all know How to Beat, but he does really great videos. And I was watching the How to Beat the season 3 of Stranger Things. And then when I watched that, I was like, this show is actually fire. And so like after I finished watching that, then I went and then I watched the season 1 of the series. But I had already got spoiled by season 3 because obviously the How to Beat video. But I started watching season 1, of course, and then I just was hooked after that. Because I started watching season 1 at like 3 o'clock in the morning and I didn't stop until I had to get up and go to church. So, and then after I got back from church, I was right back watching Stranger Things. But let's get into what I think they did really great about Stranger Things because the first thing that I got is Mr. Clark. Okay, so back in season 1, we learned that Mr. Clark is I think he's their physics teacher, I think he's their physics teacher. And Mr. Clark, his character arc was actually really shallow before, but in this final season and the final episode, Mr. Clark actually, like, he became a part of the squad. Like, for real, no, he did. He became a part of the squad, for real. But, like, he was slowly transitioning into becoming a part of the squad. And in the season final, he finally became a part of the squad. Especially because when he heard Dustin was in trouble, like, that boy left the Cheeks to go help Dustin. Like, that's what I was saying, bro. Mr. Clark's character arc, it got really expanded. And I was really happy about that because when I first saw him in season 1, I was like, we need to get more of him because he was helping them even before Will got missing because he was their radio club advisor. He was like the advisor of that radio club and he had helped them make the pool for Elle, the bath. The hyper deprivation tank, I think it's called. No, sensory deprivation or something like that. The deprivation tank, the salt bath for Elle, and he even helped them create that. So I was like, he's got to play even a bigger role in this at some point because there's no way that they're giving him this much screen time and for him not to be like a major character to finally get some more parts. And in the final season, he got that because, like I said before, when he heard Dustin was in trouble, he left the Cheeks to go and help Dustin. And even his character arc expanding, because in the final, when Erica had cussed and he had said, like, Erica, like, watch your language, she was like, Mr. Clark, this isn't science class. This is the real world. Like, we're saving the world. And Mr. Clark, he said, bump it. And he said, GD. Like, bro, that's crazy. Because I'm like, Mr. Clark's character is expanding past what I personally thought that it wouldn't, because I wanted to see more Mr. Clark, but I didn't think that they would have gave us more Mr. Clark. And especially, I didn't think that they would expand his character, because a lot of people, like, you might not see the him cursing part like as a big character change, but even throughout the show, if I remember correctly, like when the students would cuss or when they would say like inappropriate things, and like Mr. Clark would be like, like, that's inappropriate. Because like even when they came to his house and stuff like that, and they had said that he was getting some cheeks, he was like, this is like very inappropriate to come to my house now or something. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because they were like, the librarian, like, really? And he was like, this is very inappropriate. So like to see Mr. Clark finally break that shell of like always being like a stickler for the rules, or always being like, that's inappropriate, like, that was really cool to see that. And like I said before, it was actually really great to see him be a part of the team. And then, so another thing that I really think that they did very well was Vecna's character. Now I will say that I was hating on Vecna's character at first. I was hating on Henry's character at first, because, and I'll get into this part later in the video, but Henry's character was kind of too shallow for me at the beginning. Like, I understand we were just meeting him in season 4, but his character was very shallow. Like, we just saw him curse Chrissy, right? So we saw him curse Chrissy, but it really didn't give us too much, or I didn't see them give us really too much or many reasons of like why he cursed Chrissy specifically. Like, I understand why he cursed Max, and I understand why he cursed the boy, but Chrissy, because the only thing that I could really think of is with her doing the drugs with Eddie. But if I remember correctly, I didn't remember that ever like being like an issue. Like, or I would have wanted to see that be more of an issue, because with Vecna's character is that he plays on people's fears to curse them. And so kind of when he killed Chrissy, it kind of felt like it was just the introduction of us getting introduced to him and then find out like he's been here the whole time. That felt kind of not like a good setup. I don't really want to say bad writing either, but it didn't feel like it was meant to happen that way, if that makes sense. Because I would have felt like of another character, like the character that the boy with the scar, if he would have got cursed by Vecna first and he would have been the first one to die, then it would have made more sense. Because, like I said, Vecna's power is playing on your fears and using those against you to kill you, like we saw with the boy, and then we saw with Max later, even though she got put in the coma. I would have liked to see some other character get that introduction more than Chrissy, because it kind of made Vecna's character come in as flat, because we didn't know anything about him, obviously, because it was his introduction. We didn't know anything about him, and we were just seeing him for the first time, so they weren't going to give us like too much about him. But I do feel like it was kind of off-putting to have him be the pseudo big bad, because for me personally, I knew the whole time that the Mind Flayer was the big bad, because they hyped the Mind Flayer up in like season 1, season 2, and also season 3, but then they died it down in season 4 and they made it Vecna was the big bad. But no, Vecna was, and that's the other thing why I didn't really like Henry's character until this final season, was because they hyped Vecna up to be this big bad, but it's kind of like we could have already guessed it, because we got number 11 and then we see Callie, which is number 8, I think. So obviously the big bad had to be number 1, because if there are a number 11 and number 8, then there's obviously a number 1, right? And then when we see number 1 finally, and we see like that little bit of his story where they were suppressing his powers because he was so strong, and then 11 had to beat him and send him to the upside down, it kind of felt a little, because it kind of made me feel like, okay, so Vecna's just a plot point. Until the final season, which I'm about to get into right now, actually. Because in this final season, Vecna, he moved up on my character list. I will say that. He moved up on my character list. Because Vecna's character arc, we finally saw it fully develop. We finally saw how he got the powers. We finally saw how the other numbers were created and why he is the number 1, why he's number 1. And we also got to see, like I said, who the true big bad was, which is the Mind Flayer. Because the Mind Flayer, just like Will said, was using Henry as a vessel. But Henry merged with the Mind Flayer to become one, even though the Mind Flayer beforehand was using him as a vessel. But I think I just lost my train of thought. But as I was about to say before, with the other numbers, this was another thing that I didn't really understand, and I'll probably say this when I get into the things they did wrong. But I'm gonna just share it now, actually, because it goes hand in hand with the Vecna thing, and I'll just share it again later. Because with the numbers being created, they used Vecna's blood. They did blood transfusions with pregnant women and Henry's blood to create the other numbers. But if every other number has Henry's blood, it kind of felt like that they just set up the plot to have 11 leave anyway, because Callie said that they needed her because she was basically the new Henry, which I didn't understand that, because if they have her, if they had captured Callie before and they were using her blood, but it was making the people sick, why wouldn't 11's blood do the same thing? Because it's technically not, it's Henry's blood in all of them though, but 11 has Henry's blood, but she doesn't have like Henry's pure blood, if that makes sense. Because Callie doesn't either, but that's what I'm trying to understand. Like, they would need Henry, not 11. Because the only other thing I could think of is that since 11 is like the closest, maybe the closest like in strength compared to Henry, is maybe why like her blood is kind of like on the same level as his. And since Callie's like a little bit weaker, like her blood isn't as pure, like it's not as close to Henry and L's. But I kind of feel like they threw that little plot wrench in there just to make more sense why 11 had to leave, even though I feel like she didn't have to leave anyway. But my next point is Murray. All right, now when I seen Murray walking out with Hopper, Callie, and L, I was like, they putting Murray on Go Team. Cause like they're putting Murray in action. Like, bro, season 4, Murray was the GOAT. Season 5, Murray is still the GOAT. Because you're not about to tell me like that Murray's not a ride or die. Because in Russia, Murray helped Joyce get Hopper back. And then they spun back and Murray was still there front line fighting with all of them. And even before Russia, Murray was right when they found, I forgot about that. Even before that, back in season 3, Murray was there. So, bro, like that, you can't tell me that Murray's the GOAT. You can't tell me that Murray's not the GOAT. Because with Alessi and with the Russian Terminator, Murray was there. Like, bro, Murray is really the GOAT. Like, Murray, he's on Go Team. And then when he threw the bomb at the helicopter, that just solidified Murray in like the top, almost like, he can't be above some characters, but he's up there with in the character list though. Like, Murray's up there in the character list, because when he threw that bomb at the helicopter, I lost my teacups. I lost my crap. But Murray, he's had some good shows in the series. He's shown up very good in a lot of the scenes in the show. Most notably with, like I said, about helping Hop in Russia, and then also with, because we haven't really seen a lot like of Murray doing like a lot of action until this season, until season 5. But he has, ever since like we met him back in season 3, he's had kind of like that ride or die kind of energy. Like, because when he helped Joyce get Hopper back in Russia, because he's been doing like a lot of more so kind of like backseat, like they had him like more backseat kind of sidekick work, because he was decoding the phone messages, doing the tracking and all that. But now like he's doing frontline, like go team, like that's what I'm saying, he's go team now, he's doing frontline work now. He is literally, because bro, when he drove the car totally upside down and he drove it through the gate, I was like, this nigga Murray is the GOAT. And then when he threw the ball, I like, bro, the scene with the bomb and the helicopter, I can't. That scene was peak. Like, that scene was peak. It was actually crazy. When he threw the bomb at the helicopter and he blew that, because, bro, I was like, there's no way they about to kill Callie right now. And when I see Murray strapping up the grenade with the C4, I was like, Murray, the GOAT. Like, bro, that's all I can say. Murray just on GOAT team. Like, Murray's solidified after that final series, season 5. Murray's up there on the team. He's up there on the party. You just got to have Murray in your top 5. The next that I want to talk about is Callie's redemption, though. Because before, and I was one of them. I ain't gonna lie, I was one of them. Because Callie, she gave me like some weird energy. I ain't gonna lie. She kind of, I low-key thought that she was gonna set us up. I low-key thought she was working with K, with Dr. K. I thought she was working with Doc K. Had a feeling maybe she was working for Vecna, but not. I more so thought she was working for the Doctor, and that she was going to capture 11 and take 11 back to Dr. K so they could take her blood. I don't know why. Just Callie, it was just like weird energy. But I guess like that's what they wanted us to think, so then they could set up her helping 11 escape and finally be free from everything. But Callie got her redemption, because when we first saw her in season 2, she wasn't really a good influence, because she was trying to keep Jane there, and then she showed her like the bad stuff that could happen, and she had wanted Jane to help them kill, Elle, but also known as Jane. She had wanted Elle to help them kill all the scientists that experimented on them. So she was going more so the rage revenge route rather than the saving the world route, or trying to be a better example for 11. And finally in this arc, when we find out that it's Callie back there instead of Henry, like they have Callie back there instead of Henry, her redemption arc, it does start. It starts slowly, because she starts telling Elle all this bull crap about like they gotta sacrifice themselves, and she's telling Elle about them trying to make the other numbers, so she's basically scaring her into sacrificing herself. But Callie she gets her redemption here at the end when she tells Elle that your story doesn't have to end. Like, just because mine's ending here, yours doesn't have to end here. And she helps Elle escape to finally be free. But now, when Callie did pull that gun on Hopper, I was like, bro, I was about to tweet, because I was like, there's no bro, we know nigga messed up because he broke the thing, because Vecna got in his head, which I should have talked about that in Vecna's character development too, because when Vecna got in Hop's head, I was like, bro, Hop, you're getting the Pennywise treatment right now. Like, it's not real. I was like, my nigga, it's not real, bro. It's not real. But yeah, he got, and Vecna got him. But Callie, when she pulled that gun on Hopper, and then she pulled it back because she was listening to what he was telling Elle, I was like, she's gonna help her, because Elle getting free has always been something I wanted to see from Stranger Things, because she's been through so much in the show. Like, she's been through so much pain, torture, everybody trying to use her and get her for her powers. And so finally to see her finally get freed there at the end, that was very heartwarming and that was really, really great. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, Callie got her redemption for that, for helping L. Especially from how we had seen her before, like I said, where she was using L to get revenge on the scientist and all of that. You could see in her eyes that she didn't want revenge anymore. She just wanted this all to end because she said that the cycle would never end unless they were both gone. And she also saw her friends die and then being used just for her blood. She was tired of it. And that's why I also think Callie had to die because Callie's story was over. There was really nothing more for Callie to do, and there was nothing more else that she would have been able to do. But like I said, help Elle escape and help Elle be safe. So I do like how they gave Callie a little bit of redemption there at the end, and they redeemed her, and that we could get closure on the Callie thing. But I do know a lot of fans because even me, like I was like, dang, like when I seen her presumably die, I was like, dang, like we was hating on her, but like she was actually trying to help us here at the end. I was like, dang, because everybody thought she was evil and she was going to turn on her, and I was like, and I mean, I was one of them because I was like, I don't trust her, but then at the end, I was like, yo, like I actually feel bad because she was actually trying to help us. But the next thing I want to talk about is the nostalgia. Because if you're like me, I love 90s and I love like a lot of that 90s, 80s, like retro-ish stuff. And yeah, I know certain things took place in the 90s, but it's just like that retro nostalgic feeling that I like. Because I'm about to get in this one point, and this next point is like headphone warning. I should have put that at the beginning of the video, but headphone warning. But this the whole nostalgic thing with the 90s, the music, the arcades, like the drive-ins, like the movies. I just really like love it because the 90s, I'm pretty sure it was an amazing, phenomenal time to be alive. Like I just feel like it was probably great. But just the nostalgia that you get from Stranger Things, just like from the theme music to everything, like they did that perfectly to a T. Like there's nothing more nostalgic wise that I could have asked for from this show. From like the way that people dressed to like the way the music was. Like I love the video game-ish mixed with the Dungeons and Dragons retro-ish, pop-ish synth like music sounds and all of that. It's just like very magical. Like it really pulls you in and makes you feel like you're a part of the party. And that's like the whole show. I just felt like I was a part of the party. Like the nostalgia part is peak up there for me. But for this next part that I'm about to make, they played 2 Prince songs in the season final. When Doves Cry and Purple Rain. And ever since I've been a kid, Prince has been like shoved in my head. Like I've listened to Prince like on repeat, whole albums, CD, nothing but Prince, 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 Prince. On there is like more Prince. And to see Prince's music in so many touching and heartwarming scenes in one of my favorite shows, like I literally almost I started tweeting. I did cry. Like if you didn't cry during this season final, I don't know. You might have a human bone in your body, but like I lost everything. Like I was in here tweaking out. Like you would have thought there was a concert going on in here, bro. Like, I was tweaking out because y'all know Prince's like the whole estate. They don't really let the music get out. Like they don't really be giving away the licensing like that. They be acting a little crazy about it. And to know that they were able to get the licensing for 2 of Prince's best songs on, if you want my opinion, his best album. But even though Dirty Mind is good, but Purple Rain is too legendary. It's pretty hard to beat Prince. Like it's pretty hard to beat a legendary artist like Prince. But to hear to hear Prince in one of my favorite songs of 2025 and now 2026, it was just like my inner child just got healed a little bit there. And I was just like, bro, like it's magical because Prince has played a big impact in my life. Like I said, ever since I've been a kid, my dad has like shoved Prince, like everything Prince. I went to a Prince concert before he died. I was able to see him live in person. I went to a concert and it was like a magical experience. And to see and to hear Prince's music, because the record, because if y'all guys remember, the record, Mike had chose the record before, but Robin was like, nah, if you want something to be at the end of the world, we need something more hyped up and more legendary to save the world to. And then when I heard the upbeat beat, the guitar, the drum, I was like, bro, there's no way. I lost it. And then just to see the tone switch to the more like ballad kind of slow-mo of Purple Rain when 11 was quote unquote about to sacrifice herself, I was like, bro, like there's no way they're doing this right now. And that's why I lost it, because it was just too legendary, bro. Like it was too legendary. But I really did love that they paid tribute to Prince, and they recognized Game by putting Prince in there, especially in two of his best songs in there at that. And my inner child really appreciated that a lot. And I hope a lot of other fans really also appreciated that, with how legendary and how great an artist Prince is, to see his music in a pop culture show like Stranger Things, to see his music, especially how big it would have been back in the 90s around that time. It was great. It was magical, really. Before, another thing that I want to talk about, and this was crazy. Miss Byers. When I tell you, when she took the axe and she cut off Vecna's head, I lost my teacups again. Like, I have no more tea. I literally have no more teacups to lose. Like, bro, that was the coup de grace to everything. That, because when I saw Vecna still breathing, I was like, bro, there's no way. But Miss Byers, that was the coup de grace to everything. That was the big boom. That was like just the perfection to everything. And matter of fact, let me turn these lights on so I can get some better lighting in here. But Miss Byers cutting off Vecna's head and us seeing flashbacks and clippings to everything that he's done to every single character. Because, like I said, Vecna has been here since the beginning. Vecna was the reason Will got missing. Vecna was the reason the L's traumatized. All the other numbers were dead. He's the reason Max got put in a coma. He's the reason Eddie died. And I'll get into that later, because if y'all don't know, Eddie's my favorite character. Hellfire Club? We won't get into that later, though. But the reason Eddie died, the reason Chrissy died, the reason that one guy with the scar on his face died, or it might have been his lip, it was something, but he died. The reason that the demos are in Hawkins anyway. The reason that Nancy's friend died, Marge Byrne, or yeah, something like that. The reason that she died, Vecna, he's the reason for, the clock. Even though that's not really, but the clock sounds like his thing. But yeah, but you get the point. So it was just powerful for us to see Miss Byers, the first person that Vecna effed with. And she even said it, you F with the wrong family. Like, bro, I was like, Miss Byers, you, like, to see her The character development in the series final was just it was too powerful. It was just amazing. Like it was almost perfection. To see Miss Byers from going to being called crazy to being afraid and very overprotective towards Will, and then to see her just shift and do a whole 360 to tell this nigga Vecna that you F with the wrong family and to cut his head off, and to finally put an end to the being that cursed her and took her son in the first place, and the whole cause of all of this was a whole series following his own. And I honestly, because when the fight happened, I was like, there's no way, like, it was just this easy for them to kill this guy. Like, I was like, I didn't have any problem with L beating Vecna, but I just felt like it had to be more. And I think Miss Byers was the only one that was going to be able to kill Vecna. Because Vecna, he did do stuff to everybody else, but for Miss Byers, Vecna had her and her family in a chokehold for 2 whole seasons. So, and he almost took everything from her with being like with her son mainly. So it was a good closing on her character for her to be the one to, and especially to cut, because like shooting, psychic strangling someone is different, but for you to melee attack them, cutting off with each strike, remembering everything that they have done to you, your friends, your family, until you finally see his head hit the ground, it's just powerful. Because like even I started watching Stranger Things in October, and I just finished it now here with everybody else. But even I felt the power, like just the emotional power with each strike of that axe to Vecna's neck, and finally seeing his head fall to the ground was just like a sigh of relief. Like everything that we finally have been through in this whole show, everything that's finally happened, like we finally get to see just it all fall and everything just finally come to a head. So the next topic that I'm going to get into also is the things that I guessed, and I briefly talked about this when I was saying the things they did right. The Mind Flayer. So when I first started watching Stranger Things, I thought the Mind Flayer was the big bad anyway, before I even started watching. But I didn't know Vecna was there earlier than he was until like later when we all found out that he was there the entire time. And that he was the one that got the demos to take Will, and he needed Will as a vessel. Because the Mind Flayer needed Will as a vessel, and so Vecna also needed Will as a vessel. But I knew the Mind Flayer was the big bad. They set the Mind Flayer up too much for the Mind Flayer just to be a puppet that Vecna sent. And then once we see Vecna kill the scientist in the cave and then get the stone that had the essence of the Mind Flayer in it, it was like, and the Mind Flayer was like, find me, and then Will was like, so he got you too. And I was like, bro, like I knew it. The Mind Flayer was the main antagonist of the whole show. Like, yes, it's also Vecna, because Vecna's like the kind of like the herald. He'll be like the Silver Surfer is to Galactus for the Mind Flayer. He'll basically be like the herald for the Mind Flayer. So it's kind of Vecna, but it's mainly the Mind Flayer, because the Mind Flayer is the one that's pulling the strings. Like everybody thought it was Vecna. No, it's the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer is the one pulling the strings behind the whole thing. And then the end to see, because I remember looking on Instagram threads, and some guy, he did call this with the kids and Vecna being like a engine, or kind of like a Power Rangers thing for a dormant demon. in the abyss, which the dormant demon was the mind flayer. It was a dormant mind flayer. The mind flayer was in the abyss. And because when I saw the heartbeat, I was kind of confused at first about it, but I was like, okay, maybe he's going to reawaken this monster or something. But I didn't know it was the mind flayer. And when I heard the mind flayer's voice, when I saw it, and I was like, yo, like, if it's the mind flayer is the big bad. Like, even though Vecna merged with the mind flayer, it's kind of more so like he's mechazording the mind flayer, basically. Like, he's in the mind flayer, like, just like how Aaron is controlling his Titan form. But the mind flayer is its own entity. Vecna didn't create the mind flayer. The mind flayer created Vecna. So, yeah. And now let's get into my next few points, which would be things that I feel like they could have did better. Because like I said before, I'm not unhappy with the series final. I think they did phenomenal. A lot of people did not like the series final. They said it was very underwhelming because they said that one of the main points was that it wasn't a lot of stakes. They thought that the characters, the party, they had a lot of plot armor. Which I'm not denying this fact, but what I kind of want to say is, like, what did we all really expect from the season final? Because I did say in my past episode that I thought it could end, the series would end like a Kami got killed, like everybody getting packed out. But the way that the story started moving in season 5, it would kind of have been confusing of why everybody got packed out. And with Callie being the only death, I think it lined up actually pretty well because all the other characters, they didn't need to die to get closure for their character arcs. They just needed to move on. They needed to be free from all the trauma that they faced in the past seasons. But Callie, her death was imminent, if that makes sense. Like, her death, Callie did have to die in the Upside Down for her character arc to get closure. Because just like 11, Callie was tortured, and then she even got tortured again, and taken in and experimented on again. And she was just kind of in an endless loop of torment, and the only way out was, unfortunately, the death route. And I feel like her dying in the Upside Down was very symbolic for at least that piece. Because with them, except for Henry, her and 11 were the only numbers left. So it was very symbolic for her to die in the Upside Down as one of the numbered children. But like everybody else dying, like Steve or Will or Mike or Lucas, Max or Robin or 11 or Hopper or Joyce or Lucas or Max or Harrison or Dustin, like it wouldn't derailed the story, I feel like, too much. Like it wouldn't have made sense for them to die. It would have kind of been like I always love to say, Ace in One Piece. It would have literally made no sense. Because, like I said, for their character arcs to close and get closure, they didn't need to die. They just needed to move past the Upside Down. They just needed to move past 11. They just had to get away from 11 so that they could move on with their lives, because they needed their lives back to how everything was before 11 came. And that's sad to say, but that's how it had to be. They needed their lives to go back to how everything was before 11 showed up, because when she came, everything went in the way. Because Kylie was right about one thing. As long as 11 and her were there, this wasn't going to stop. Like, they could kill K, they could get rid of K, but somebody else would come along. A new scientist would come, a new formation would get formed, a new organization would come. As long as it was presumed to be alive, as long as there was a way to get to the Upside Down, they weren't going to stop. So for Elle to fake her death and leave, and for nobody to know and to think she died, and for her to close her own character arc, that's how everybody else's character arc would have been even close to being able to close. And that's why I do think that the season final wasn't as underwhelming as people say. Because, yes, it would have hit harder if some of the other crew, like if the main crew, if like they died. But that's all it would have been. It would just have been emotional stakes with really no end payoff. Because what would we honestly have gotten if Dustin would have died? Or if Mike would have died? Or if Lucas or Max or Will or Joyce or Nancy, Jonathan or Steve? Or even 11? Like, the only thing that we would have got from 11 dying was the same thing we got if she lived, but like she went away. But if she would have died, the only thing that would have happened was it would have just been more emotional that she left, even though it was emotional that she left anyway, but at least we know that she's still alive and that she's doing well. And she's getting that character arc that we all have wanted for her since the beginning of the show, rather than her dying and her character arc ending without her actually being able to get the fruits of life that she has wanted since she's been a little girl. And so that's why I feel like the stakes, like, even though, like, yeah, the party, they did have a lot of plot armor, because when they fought the Mind Flayer, I don't see how they didn't die from that. That plot, like Nancy, the plot armor was real thick right there. Steve falling off the tower, that plot armor was really thick right there too. But if they did die, it wouldn't have really did anything for the story. It does more for the story for them to be alive rather than for them to die, because we get to see their character arcs finally finish, with Nancy finally realizing she doesn't want to go to school. She doesn't want to go to Emerson. She goes back and gets a job at the Herald. And then Jonathan, he doesn't want to go to Emerson. He goes to NYU to do movies. And then Steve, he finally gets his character arc. He wanted 6 little nuggets, 6 kids, but now he's a coach and he's teaching kids sex ed. So he's around kids. And we also see Robin's character arc, her and Vicky. I think she's staying around. So I watched the series final twice last night, but I think she's still staying around Hawkins with Vicky. But I have to go back and watch to know for sure. But with their character arcs, it's better for them to be alive because we finally get to see them finish. The same thing with the party with Max, Lucas, Dustin, Mike, Will. They're playing D&D. They got invited. Like, they've been bullied so much since they were kids, and they finally got in with the popular kids, but they didn't want it. And so they went to go play D&D, and Mike tells everybody's story now, because he tells a story of Max and Lucas about how their love grows stronger each day. He tells the story of Dustin, of how he went off to school, and he tells a story about Will, how Will's finally living his truth, how Will's finally living his true life. He doesn't have to live it in fear. And then he even talks about himself, how even though he didn't go to school or any of that, but he's telling everybody's story. He's telling the stories now. He's a writer. He's telling everybody's story. And he even tells about 11, about how they believe that she escaped, which we see that she did, but they don't know that she did. They thought that she died at first, but then now they believe that she escaped, which we see that she did escape, and she did go to a place. I don't know if it was 3 waterfalls, but it was a couple waterfalls. So she went to a place with waterfalls that kind of looks like the fantasy world that her and Mike talked about. And so that's why I feel like when people say it was underwhelming, I kind of feel like people just wanted like a very, very big emotional finish to the show. But we got that emotional finish anyway. It might not be the death emotion, like the mourning death emotional finish that people wanted, but it was the emotional finish that people needed. And I hope that everybody can see that. We got the emotional finish we needed, not the emotional finish that people wanted. So with saying that, I don't feel like that it was very so underwhelming. The only part that I feel like was underwhelming was the final battle. I do feel like the final battle could have given us more rather than seeing Elle and Vecna just go between a pushing psychic battle. I do feel like we could have seen more from it. Like maybe seeing Elle's abilities evolve into something more than just forceful psychic powers. Like maybe more kinetic psychic powers, and to see Vecna kind of use his powers like more, because he got the new form. He was using like the force fields to block the fire before and all of that, but kind of against Elle, it was just more of a push and pull kind of battle rather than like final series like final battle. And then things did kind of heat up with the when they fought the Mind Flayer, but still, I feel like that fight was a little bit underwhelming too, just a little bit. Because to me, honestly, the best part of the whole fight was when Miss Byers cut Vecna's head off. And like I said, I felt like Miss Byers was the only one that could kill Vecna. Like, it was just right that they did that. It was just right that she was the one to make sure that Vecna was dead and that he was gone. And I just felt like that was the only way that it could have happened that way. But I do feel like the final battle, it could have been more. Like we could have had a lot more. Because for me personally, and now I'm about to get to this. I'm about to get to the Hellfire part. Me personally, I wanted Eddie back. Because if you guys go back to when, or if you know anything about D&D, Vecna was defeated by the Vampire Knight. And Eddie died by the Demo Bats. So I felt, and you know, Stranger Things is a supernatural show. So for me personally, I would have liked for Eddie to come back in like kind of like a Vampire Knight like attire, like maybe he's been wandering the Upside Down or something like that, or like his spirit comes back. I just would love to have seen Eddie come back in some capacity to help them, and for him to like come back and as like some supernatural being or something, because Eddie's character, it was too short-lived. Like, they gave him the Rengoku treatment. We just met him, and he got packed out the same season we just met him. And I personally didn't like it because I wanted to see more of Eddie. Like, I wanted to, but I do understand, like, with his character arc, he needed that redemption from his death. I do feel like his death was unnecessary because the Demo Bats, I don't think they would have got to them before they could have thrown the bottle and set Vecna on fire. I think that they would have been able to set him on fire, and then the hive mind would have kicked in and Vecna would have got defeated and Eddie could have lived. But Eddie needed that sacrifice for himself, I feel like. And I feel like he also did needed to save Dustin as well, because the Demo Bats could have came through the hole that they were in the house and they would have got him anyway. So I do think Eddie going back and sacrificing himself, it was needed to some capacity, but I do feel like they could have wrote it to where he survived also. But yeah. And so now I'm going to get into some bonus thoughts, because why not? So we're going to talk more about Prince because, bro, like, Prince was just, that was really one of my favorite parts of the whole final was Prince. Because bro, like there's just I was just like in shock. Like I'm still in shock. Because for them to put Prince in there on the most gut and heart wrenching part of the final, that was just pure cinema. It was absolute cinema. It was just great. And then for them to do If Doves Cry on the upbeat Escape, to even give us that false hope, that was good storytelling. For them to give us that false hope that, yes, they're escaping. And then we see the spikes hit the tires. And then it's like, nope, never mind. They're not escaping. And then they hit us with the sad, solemn melody of Purple Rain. Like I said before, it was just magical. And then my next bonus tip is all about people disliking the final. Like, you can't tell me that this final was as bad as Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones ended terrible. But this final, it was absolute same. It was peak. Like, I really loved the ending of Stranger Things. I think the final really capped everything off. Like, because like I told you, I went straight to the internet because like there was so much about this final that I just had to talk about. So I had to make an episode about it. But there was so much that, like in the interviews I had looked at, and there was so much that the cast was saying, like, people aren't going to be content or they're not going to get closure with it. And I was like, I could see why some people won't get closure. But then again, I can't really understand why people don't get closure. And I hope that I explained it very well in this episode about why you should get closure for it. But I can understand why you probably won't get closure. Because maybe you wanted that more solemn, sad ending with the multiple deaths and all of that. But that's not the ending that we needed for Stranger Things. The ending we needed was seeing everybody move on and everything move on how it was supposed to. And I think that was the best course of action for the way that the season final ended. And I don't think it was underwhelming. I don't think it was overwhelming. I think it was just right. I think what we got was just right. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you stayed for the end. I know this was a really tight deep dive, but I was really passionate about making this episode because, boy, when I tell you, I've loved every single episode of Stranger Things. And I'm thinking about watching the whole series over again because I'm feeling for more. Like the first watch through, nothing beats your first watch through. But the second watch through, I can be more analytical and I can see things that I might have missed the first time. But I just really love this show. Like it's real. It's just a very, very hard gut punch to pop culture on this show. Like, this show is really a chef's kiss to all these people and all pop culture. It's absolute cinema. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Subscribe. Don't forget to follow the socials. And welcome to the new year. I'll see you later, my kingdom.